Hey gang, Canadian Computer Collector here, and it's time for us to do another intake video. Right now my refrigerator is making this noise. So hopefully you don't hear that in the background sound, but even if you do, what really can I do other than delay this until I live somewhere completely different? So basically, in the last 3 months or so, because that's kind of, I think, how frequently I've been doing these, I've accrued some stuff. Lots of computers and retro tech junk. So we're gonna have a look at some of that today. We're gonna test some of it out. Not all of it, I think we'll be able to get to. Like, I don't think I have the proper cableage to test a Sega Genesis, but we'll see. I also have this Discman here with Mega Bass, or if you're a fisherman, Mega Bass. Anyway, I'm excited to get through this stuff. We got some new things, we got lots of old things, and we got a ring-a-ding-ding. Alright, let's get to it. Yeah, so unlike Beverly Hills, it's winter in full swing over here. Cold AF outside and snowing almost every day. So what a great time to head indoors and start leaning on those hobbies, like old computer collecting. First up is a G4 iBook. Now this thing came without a battery, and I thought that I had a battery for it. Turned out it was for a larger model. So I just grabbed a plug and tried my best to untangle it, and then we plugged this thing in, and to my surprise, actually, you know what? As cheap as this thing was, it was like 20 bucks. Pretty clean machine. So you know what? Other than not having a battery, this thing is pretty much an A+ for me. It's nice and clean. It's not missing any keys or anything like that. I love these little G4s. The only beef that I have with them is that they are super complicated to take apart and put back together. I have a larger model, as I mentioned before. Took it apart, put it back together, and had a lot of screws left over. So definitely an overcomplicated one. These were kind of cool, I thought. They're kind of like these little electronics project kits from probably the 60s or 70s. I think they're both solar kits, but they both have spots for batteries. So, yeah. Anyway, this one's really neat. The Solar Power Electronic Lab Kit. This one's been untouched. And actually, the plastic bag on it kept it nice and clean. So, a far less dusty example and faded. Less faded example than the other one. Inside the book, there are neat little quips about solar energy and its history, and then some instructions on how to assemble the thing. We're just going to slide that bag back on to keep it nice and bright for the future. Coming up next is a digital rainbow. And let me tell you, if you showed a little kid that and said, "This is a digital rainbow," they'd say, what are you talking about? Frankly, it's one of the most boring looking boxes I think I've ever seen, but it does have a very cool floppy drive, so I had to pick this thing up. Got it locally from someone off a buy-sell, nice and cheap. I'll tell you what's really cool about this thing is it has these little sliders that kind of lock the top case in place. These old machines are so heavy duty that typically they have actual locking mechanisms holding the cases together, as opposed to just a button here or there or a screw here or there. So this case has seen better days. Obviously it was glued at one point in time. I'm probably gonna have to re-glue it, but we'll clean that out and do a better job of what was there before. This is a close-up on how the locking mechanism works. It's got a little tab you can push and pull. So I'll just go ahead and put that lid back on and get that thing out of the way. Next up, we got 688 Attack Sub by our friends at EA Games. Challenge everything. This is probably from the era when they still had good in their hearts, but who can really be certain of that? I mean, they've turned into such a monster these days. Got some really cool 8-bit graphics on the box, and a whole lot of drama, I would say. Here's a neat little machine I got, an AMD K6-2 at 225 megahertz, 64 megs of SD RAM, a CD-ROM drive. Right now I'm running DS Linux 4.4.1. Admittedly, I'm not a Linux guy. I ran Linux for a few months back in the early 20-teens, but I haven't done that in a long time, especially not on a daily driver. So, hey, let's just turn this thing on, see what happens. Love that heavy switch. And it seems like it boots okay. So let's pop that monitor on. And here we go. We've got welcome to DSL with, of course, the Linux Penguin. And lots of beautifully colored text. That's one thing I can get behind. You saw that digital rainbow earlier. We're seeing a true digital rainbow right now. A whole new world. Anyway, this is me playing solitaire and just dominating. Thank you. Congratulations to me. Anyway, this neat little box is going to get unplugged and we'll get this thing out of the way. I think it's really cool and I look forward to working on that in the future. While I've got the monitor and keyboard and mouse and all that out, let's pop in another beige box I picked up recently. Boy, that hard drive is trying to phone home. It's so loud. Wasn't really sure what this had on it, but Windows XP makes sense, I guess. Sadly, I did not know the admin password, although the hint was neat. Birth. So I guess the password would be what? Necessary? Anyway, let's unplug this thing, get it out of here, along with the mouse and keyboard. Anyway, here's a 6160 that I picked up recently with an AutoCAD tab and a mouse and keyboard. It also came with an additional keyboard, which we'll see later, and this cool monitor. Now, these machines use this totally necessary video adapter that, for some reason, you have to plug into a standard Apple monitor before you plug it into the machine. Here's the AutoCAD tab with the little thing taped over top of it. I'm not sure. I haven't tested it out yet, but I'm sure it works fantastically. There were some really cool floppy disks that came with this setup that I'll get into later as well. Obviously, someone had been designing some cool things with this. Now, when I bought it, the ad said it was working, and the previous owner showed me a picture of it running. However, I couldn't, no matter how hard I tried, get the thing to actually boot and show me something on the monitor. I played around with the contrast settings and brightness and didn't really change much, so tried shutting it off, trying it again. I tried switching out the adapters, which you'll see shortly. And then I also tried it with another monitor, and actually nothing seemed to do it. So what I'm thinking here is I may need to reseat some of the components. I may have a capacitor problem that just happened to surface in between the owner bringing it to me and him having it beforehand. I don't know, but all I know is that this machine is going to need to get looked at, and I would really like to try at least, because there's some really cool history to it, what with it being used for AutoCAD designs on what I found out later to be Canadian railway stations. And I have faith in it because it is booting up, it is giving us a boot chime, so, you know, there's life in this machine yet. June here watching me as I clean up, doing a little inspection there of her legs, I guess. This is cool. It's a Tandy 2500 XL computer. Now, when I was unboxing this, I don't know why I thought it was going to use some kind of video connection that I didn't have, probably because I have other older machines that are from Tandy that don't use standard video output, but this one, you know, in hindsight, while I'm editing the video, I noticed it was just regular VGA. So I wish I had tested it, but I didn't. Anyway, we just saw the keyboard, but we'll see it again in a moment. But beautiful keyboard, just a really cool overall looking machine. It's got a 5 1/4 drive and a 3 1/2. And then here's the rear I/O. So as you can see, I probably could have plugged a monitor into this and booted it up. So shame on me, know what I'm saying? Anyway, there's that beautiful keyboard again. This, once it's all cleaned up, is going to look fantastic. And it's a PS2 output, so it is usable on quite a few machines. Close up on the dirt, because this thing physically had some dirt on it. A little 5 o'clock shadow, know what I'm saying? Anyway, let's get that thing back into its box, because, you know, may as well. There's a key that goes with the case. Slide that foam in, get everything out of the way, and then you can drop the keyboard and mouse on top. Like so. And we'll get that thing out of the way. Now, this was the other keyboard that came with the AutoCAD machine. This is a really cool DataDesk Mac 101F. And this keyboard actually connects through serial as well as the telephone-like jacks that you see on the 128 and 512K. So it can be used on either. Got a couple G3 iMac keyboards, one here with many bad keys. And you know what? I needed a parts keyboard, so Now I have one. Coming up next, new PC parts for my daily driver. We have a Asus B550M-A motherboard and a Ryzen 5600 5 series CPU, as well as a Logitech 1080 60 FPS webcam, which I'll be using for streaming in the future. Also got this great little lens for a crosswalk, which has nothing to do with my PC. But I just thought it was really cool, and it's something I think I might put up on a shelf, because when you shine light through it, it actually is really neat. Got it off eBay. Anyway, this is a 2010 Polycarb MacBook. I bought this for $60 Canadian, and it had 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gig SSD. My mom wanted it, but I found that it had obviously been taken apart before and not put together too precisely, so I gave her mine, and I'm going to work on cleaning this one up. So these are the discs that came with that 6100 and the AutoCAD stuff. Some kind of basic sort of software in here, as well as things like a games disc and some other things. But there was some really neat stuff as far as the CAD goes. Things about Via Rail Stations, which is a Canadian passenger train line owned by Canadian National Railway. And there were some discs here, I think. Where are they? Just near the back here, daily backup, weekly backup. There we go, Via Station and station plans. How cool is that? Coming up next, I believe, is an Antec Dragon something case. Anyway, this is an old LAN case that I used to want back in the early 2Ks, and I'm going to do a period correct build with this. I'm really excited that I found this on local buy sell super cheap, like dirt cheap. And I'm going to put a computer inside it and do a little XP gaming rig. Next, we got a Mac Classic. Pulled this off of a local eBay sale. Again, got a really good price for it. This one boots up, but it does not make a boot chime. Unfortunately, it has had its soul robbed from it, likely because you didn't like and subscribe earlier. As you can see, this machine works just fine. So why doesn't the boot chime work? Well, I don't know, but I intend to find out. Reboot! Picked up another Trash 80 manual. I just think they look really cool on the shelf, so that's that. Here I got an Apple II monitor from an antique show in town. Oddly enough, they had 20 bucks on it. I asked if they would take 15. They said yes with a smile on their face. They were happy to get rid of this big bulky thing, and I was happy to get a monitor that maybe works. So let's pull out an Apple IIc and see if it actually does. It's a pretty basic connection that these use. A little AV cable. A little bit of back switch. Now we're going to have to give power to the monitor. I think that would be helpful. And yeah, it looks like it works. This is a common issue with these old guys. You just got to adjust the knobs on the back so that you get the picture right. And there we go. Bingo, bango. Bongos. Never been a big bongos guy, if you ask me. Bongo drums are, I don't know, too basic. Kudos to you if you're good at the bongos, I guess. So we got a couple Nintendo things here. Game Boy Color. The box on this one's kind of suspicious. It also has Curtien on the top, like curtain, but maybe like your kid's French, and his name is Curtien. I don't know. I've never heard of that as a name before, but maybe it exists. Here's some stuff that came on Amazon recently for me. A hot air station and a UV light, because I'm working on board recapping. And actually, in my first project, working on the LC2 board, I pulled a few pads off. I think I've talked about this in a previous video. Anyway, here are some machines that were donated, a bit newer for my taste, so I've stripped some of the parts out of them, returned the data back to their original owners, and I'm going to give these parts to a friend of mine who lives out in British Columbia, beautiful British Columbia, as he's been practicing soldering and building stuff out of scrap. Here's a neat little PC. I wish that I had the footage of this thing, but unfortunately it looks like it was lost. Kind of a weird looking PC. I like this optical drive door that it has. And it's also hiding a few other ports. Just at the bottom there we've got USB as well as microphone and headphone, and a 3.5-inch floppy drive. So neat little XP era machine that unfortunately I guess I forgot to press record on. So Sega Genesis, pretty straightforward. Sadly, it turns out that I was right and I do not have the proper cables to test this with, so we'll just have to go ahead and trust the system. That's a double entendre. So we have some mice and a mouse-looking thing. However, the weird little object with the 4 squares on it, that is part of the AutoCAD setup. In what way, I'm not sure. We also have an Apple mouse that would have been period correct for the 6100 or the Classic, I think. And then a weird little PC mouse. Here's our Mega Bass CD Walkman, which I thought was super cool. Doesn't work, unfortunately, but maybe down the road we can figure out why. And then a bag o' games. So let's try and read these out here. We got Asteroids, Demon Attack, Donkey Kong, what do we have? Power Challenge, and then Scare City Motel, Numble, Ruler Dueler, LCM Machine, Sector 5, Frogger, The Official Carnival of Sega, a Mystery for the Coleco, Freeway. We've also got Triple Action, Space Spartans, Frogs and Flies, Armor Ambush, Defender, NHL Hockey, Sea Battle, Space Armada, and then some chips, which I'll figure out later. And Backfire, and Snafu, and Utopia. Well, gang, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in with a capital CH to this week's edition of Canadian Computer Collector. I said that really fast. Canadian Computer Collector. Be sure to check out all the old videos on this channel. We got lots of evergreen content about collecting computers, restoring computers, working on computers, and being weird and burping freely.
Yeah, I burp free as a bird now.
Lots more of that stuff, so don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, for $1 a month, if you want to support the channel, you can join our Patreon. And with that, you get a shout out on every episode and the power of knowing that you're helping grassroots YouTubers like myself become magnificent. So without further ado, I'd like to thank the current patrons that we have here, Canadian Computer Collector, being Andy, David G, Larry C, Justin M, Ron's Computer Vids, Jason S, Adam M, Groupride, Dave's Vintage Apple Tech, Trina C, Garth B, Mac84, Ethan P, Ron R, Rudy's Retro Intel, Emma Man, Charlie from Australia, or Charles if you prefer, or Chuck if that's your cup of tea. Anyway, I'm a big fan of cups of tea, and I think you should be too. I prefer black tea and green tea, and mostly Earl Grey, leaning to the vanilla end of things, and green tea can just be straight up. My name's Dan, I'm the Canadian Computer Collector. I can't stop farting, and thank you for joining me this week. Avanti! As they said in Will Smith's classic hit movie Wild Wild West, the year of which is escaping me. Much like the slow drip of time. If you're working on a way to live forever, please send me a DM. And with that, let's get to it.